Regardless of what she could be, she will do this, to which she heard the question, which, in her opinion, he wishes. The man asked if he should again lead his tongue along her dry lips to force his mouth to open. She suggested that his desire is power, although it is not far, cited to know exactly what he was thinking about. With a serious expression on the face, Damien said that from this moment, she was forbidden to say such things. He knew that short-sightedness was not about her, although he knew that she would do everything in her power to help him. Chloe added that if he wants to divorce in the future, she will gladly satisfy his request. In a calm tone, the man asked if she offered him a divorce even before they got married. The Duke seemed too arrogant, and its arrogance at the moment makes him furious. Damien decided to ask directly what was precisely her intentions and what she hopes to get from him. Clutching the dress tightly, Chloe, with a confident look, stated that she wanted to become a duchess and save her family. At that very moment, the man went to her from behind, after which, with a smile on his face, put on a family jewelry. When asked what it feels like to wear the jewelry of Tiss's house, the girl replied that they were rather heavy. But this is nothing compared to the load of responsibility that she will have to bear as the wife of the Duke. Then he again asked if she still wanted to be his wife. She replied that she wishes this more than anything else. Then he touched her chin, asking if she carefully studied the issue of negotiations. Bringing his face to her, he asked how she thinks what he wants from her at the moment. A sudden girl grabbed the Duke by the tie, after which she pulled to her and endowed her passionate kiss. When the kiss was interrupted, the man asked if it was too much for her, but she replied that she did not want to lie. Damien said that she would have to get used to, because in the future, he is not going to stop there. After a while, the Viscount was dumbfounded by this news, while Damien said that she would become a good duchess. Father replied that his daughter was a prudent young lady, and is sure that she would gain universal respect. If he simply manages to make her happy, then he will willingly offer him everything that he has, including his life. Suddenly, the girl drew attention to his hand, noticing the glove that she sewed him, but could not give it. Meanwhile, Damien asked if he would give him the forest on the territory of the estate and mountains that lead to him. The Viscount was surprised, as this soil is almost barren, and it is difficult to find yew trees. The Duke explained that these are the lands revered by Lady Chloe, and it was there that everything originated between them. After 2 weeks, they held the ceremony. The priest asked if he was always swearing to be next to his wife, and to fulfill your duty despite all the trials and hardships that will be prepared by him in the future. Damien agreed, after which they announced that the bride and groom could kiss to fix their union. At that very moment, the man kissed her on the cheek. The Viscount, looking at them, flooded with tears, saying that his dear daughter today looks just great. Gilles, who was also among the guests, looked at Chloe, not understanding why she decided to get married. After their small kiss, the clergyman said that he declared them husband and wife. At that very moment, Damien called her, and sharply raised her in his arms, because of which the girl dropped a bouquet from fright. Listening to the words of congratulations, Chloe embarrassedly asked the newly made husband to put her on the ground. The man asked if she intends to tighten it, after which he reached out to her for a new kiss. After a couple of seconds, the girl decided not to resist, after which she grabbed his neck, receiving praise. After a while, people said that the Duke left Verdier's estate immediately, as soon as the ceremony ended. He rushed, without even spending a wedding night with his wife, and the Duchess would spend 3 months completely loneliness. Others asked if they poured this part from the Red Vuel, a local newspaper that wrote about this. They wrote there that even a marriage could not extinguish the ardent passion of the Duke, who was seen with the Marquise Isabella. Chloe also noticed this article, carefully looking at the woman who was in the photo next to Damien. One of the tailors said that it would burn it immediately, but the girl replied that this was not necessary. The burning of pieces of paper will not turn rumors into ashes, and this action will not change anything, and will not explain whether it is true. Chloe decided to leave if she finished taking measurements, but they still need to discuss the material and design. The girl replied that she puts it at her discretion, because she was aware of better than her. The employee bowed, watching the lady limping, headed for the exit, where Gilles met her. Looking at the article, the woman said that men and their ability to control themselves would destroy this country. When Chloe sat in the carriage, The guy asked why she temporarily not entrusted the control of the estate to others. He can also take care of the business on her behalf. But he was refused. The girl explained that everything was in order. Gila's was cautiously in his voice that she could attract undesirable attention due to the article in the Red Veil. She replied that if people see that the Duchess allows rumors to hurt themselves, this would give rise to more anxiety. She remembered how Demian, after the ceremony, riding a horse, said that now he was returning to the capital. And as for her, from this moment she can fulfill her direct duties of the Duchess. Over the past 3 months, he did not answer her letters, which served as a reason for many questions. However, the main reason could be the Marquise of Isabella, although Chloe did not expect anything from this marriage. Squeezing the skirt of the dress, the girl concluded that there is no reason to allow this to influence herself, all the more unreasonable. The guy first was nothing but this did not answer, glancing at the mistress, realizing that this news was reflected on her. Then he called out to her, saying that she was waiting for good news upon arrival in the mansion. It interested her. Gila's announced that the letter had arrived from Lady Alice. It is small, but it seems to be in good health. A smile immediately appeared on the girl's face when she asked why he did not tell her about it before. She really wanted to get a letter from Alice. The guy asked if she was so happy. She answered in the affirmative. Now she knows that Alice is in complete safety, and her father's health has been noticeably improved recently. Her wedding also inspired people in their possessions. Moreover, in any case, she would prefer to live separately. If only there were an opportunity to live forever, she would give a lot to continue. As she already mentioned in her previous letters, thanks to his lordship in the Verdier estate, everything is fine. She hopes that the case, because of which he hastily left, will soon be settled, and she will write to him again. Demian carefully read the letter of his wife, in which nothing important was said, only concern. When he noticed that the girl signed up the name of Verdier, he was surprised, because she was going to take his last name. Then he drew attention to the newspaper, which announced that even the marriage could not extinguish the ardent passion of the Duke. Although he recently married, several people saw him entertaining with the Marquise Isabella herself. Taking the newspaper in his hands, the man said that Chloe probably saw this, but not in a word was updated in a letter. Then he asked that she felt at the same time whether she prolonged her tears with shame, but she probably restrained them. The newspaper said that the Duke's secret novel during the honeymoon only strengthened the position of the prince. Meanwhile, rumors about the deterioration of the king's state continued to spread throughout the kingdom. Having finished reading, Demian said that they wrote exactly what he ordered them, and everything went according to plan. He remembered the words of Chloe, who said that his desire was power, and she would do everything to help him. Whenever he thinks about her, he is covered by a sudden desire to grab something to calm the anger. Since he saw her, she acted on his nerves. He was annoyed to see her helping among those in need. Although she herself could easily go for one of them, a strange feeling in her form grew, leaving a sour taste. Demian still does not know how to relate to this, but I am sure that no girl is capable of this. Looking at his gloves, he said that the next time he would have to lock her in the room and force her to sew for days. And when her fabric ends, he will make her embroider on herself, no matter how cruel it sounds. But he wishes it. The next day, the Duke was in the chambers of the king, who said that the Lord would soon take him to him. Coughing heavily, he also hoped that the Duke would serve Johannes well even after his death. The king was sure that Demian was notified that the prince was not entirely out of his mind, that he was a little aggravated by the situation. However, now he had to swear before God that he would be devoted to him and could help the king in difficult times. The Duke replied that he promises, but only if he became a king worthy of his devotion. This surprised the old man. The man tried to increase his voice that this was the obligation of the subject, to serve the king, regardless of his decision. In a calm tone, Demian replied that then it is quite obvious that this country awaits in the future with such a king. It will be the one who, unnoticed by everyone, has become crazy. But he decided to take the last words back. He is aware of his madness, as well as the king, and those who died from his hands, even though they did not commit anything terrible. There were many rumors that one body after another was pulled out of his chambers, but the people will learn about it very soon. Then he grabbed the king by the hand, said that he risked his life on the battlefield only for the sake of this kingdom. He is always ready to fight for his country, and is it wrong for the throne to the one who worthy? The king was dumbfounded, after which he began to cough, asking loudly what he dares to hint, standing in front of him. Demian replied that now the madness of Johans is kept secret, but sooner or later everything secret becomes clear. In a hoarse voice, the old man asked, since he had such greedy ambitions that had not previously manifested. In response to this, the Duke stated that they began to manifest from the moment he was born, but no one knew about it. Closer to the sunset, Chloe was in the family library, sitting on an armchair and counting the book, languidly flipping through the pages. But no matter how much she tried to concentrate, her images of the Duke Tissa and the Marquise of Isabella had the images of the Duke of Tissays before her eyes. She thought that she needed to read this article more carefully, but after a second, she decided to forget about it. At that very moment, a creak of the door was heard, and a smiling father entered the library, who attracted attention. Having shown the envelope, he stated that she was a letter from his lordship, and it seems that he was also concerned about the scandalous news. Having accepted the envelope from the hands of the Viscount, Chloe thought that he had not written anything from the moment he left for the capital. In a letter, Demian asked her to wait for him in the Tissa estate, responsibly fulfilling his duties of the Duchess there. He also hopes that she is waiting for their meeting with the same impatience as he. At the end, his signature was left. A few days later, Viscount told Gilles that he hopes that he safely accompanied his daughter on the estate. The guy replied that he had nothing to worry about. Chloe confirmed, saying that she was not a small child for a long time. Then the man took his daughter by the hand, sadly recalling the time when she and Alice were still children. Viscount said a dreary voice that they will always be his little girls, whom he will always love. When asked if he would call her so, even in old age, the man replied that she was right, albeit the Duke's wife. He also understood that she had to leave him for a long time, but the circumstances did not form the way they wanted. At that very moment, the girl rushed into the arms of her father, who was pleasantly surprised by this gesture, reciprocating her. Clutching him, Chloe thought that she would like to stay here forever, but she said that she would be in order. After all, he himself saw how the Duke values it, but the man's face said that he would not want to let her go. The girl mentally told him that she did not want to leave for the Tissa estate, but she said aloud that everything would be fine. Then she smiled, asking her father to let her go with a smile, since now his daughter is an honorary duchess. After a while, sitting in the train compartment, Gilles told Chloe that he would be in perfect order, being in a commodity car. Inspecting the environment, he added that this compartment is too gorgeous for such as he, and now he is a little uncomfortable. Having lowered her head, the girl replied that they had 2 long days of travel ahead, and would not want to be left alone. Indeed, soon she will spend most of her time alone, no matter how much she was against. Suddenly, the guy said that he had snowed. Looking out the window, Chloe agreed with him, recalling her house again. After 2 days, they arrived at the birch castle of the Tissa house, who met them with a huge gate and complete silence. The door was opened by the maid, greeting her lordship, that she was Eliza, the senior maid, the head of the household. Chloe noticed that this castle is incredibly huge, and only one person came to meet a new mistress. This may mean that she is not happy here, and in the near future, she will have to endure a neglect. Putting a cane on the floor, the girl thanked her for the warm greeting, after which she was worried about Gilles. She asked. They could not cook a little food for his accompanying way, she agreed. Eliza said that she would ask the maids to cook something for her servant, after which she asked to follow her. Turning to the guy, Chloe said that she was sorry that she could not accompany him personally, and then thanked him. The maid again called her behind her, after which, limping, Chloe headed after her, trying to keep up. Opening the door, Eliza reported that Lady Chloe had arrived. The woman ordered her to let her in, after which she greeted. The girl said that for her it is a great honor to finally meet her, adding that they are very grateful to her. The woman asked to look at her, after which Chloe slowly raised her head, paying attention to her appearance. She said that she was pretty, and the girl thought that the Duke must have gone to his mother. The woman said that she looks like a deer that Demian once caught in his youth. Then she asked if she hides fantastic wealth, or she has knowledge about skeletons in the royal closet. Not understanding the meaning of the question, Chloe answered negatively, noting that the Duke's mother slowly approaches her. Touching her cheek, the woman said that he chose her as a bride for reasons other than practical. It is true that it is beautiful, but hunting for a deer with a damaged leg for the sake of sports interest is unusual for him. She simply did not believe her ears when he asked for family jewelry to make her an offer. Perhaps it was curiosity, because from time to time he enjoys very acute sensations. Chloe replied that his grace would not have made a decision to marry, referring only to short-term curiosity. I do not know the reasons for his choice. She intends to serve him and this house with all her soul, despite her own shortcomings. Such a speech surprised, and at the same time satisfied the woman, who said that she was smarter than it seems. Chloe to her liking, with such a pretty face as her, and she is confident that her jewelry will be very suitable for her. And since she seems to have a good head on her shoulders, she will help her control the castle, solving important issues. She did not expect less from her son, because for him there is nothing more important than the family in the world, if she has not yet noticed. Then the woman asked that now that she was here, what about listening to the stories of Demian's childhood? Toward evening, entering her new chambers, Chloe immediately flopped onto the bed, almost fall asleep from fatigue. This woman chatted about him incessantly. She suggested that he had a strict upbringing, but he was clearly adored. It was very tiring for her to listen to the laudatory stories about Demian, but she was able to cope. Suddenly, in front of her, she saw his photo in the frame, surprised that he put his portrait in his wife's bedroom. Having lowered his photos down, Chloe quickly changed clothes and immediately went to bed, unable to fight fatigue. A few days later, the woman said that she was surprised, Siezrev, as she locked herself in the office for 3 days. In this, she looks like Demian. As soon as he begins to focus at some kind of work, he hardly noticed the dawn. Then she asked that Chloe wanted to discuss. The girl first hesitated before starting to say anything. A little nervous, she asked. Eliza could not leave them for a moment alone for this conversation. The maid frowned, and the woman grinned, saying that Eliza serves him since Demian was born. She is almost a family member, and there is no such conversation with the family, the essence of which she cannot know. She remembered how the Duke asked her in the last letter, how she was a new life in a birch castle. He hoped that she was performing her duties in a reliable way, and that she would not disappoint him. Chloe decided that it was more like a written warning than a simple caring letter. After all, he clearly hinted that she was supposed to fulfill some duty as a duchess, and it was for a reason. Chloe said that after studying accounting books within 3 days, she found a discrepancy in finances. Obviously, the money is flowing through the gap. The woman replied that it was not so easy to monitor the castle of this size, and this is another of the many reasons for the girl to control them as carefully as possible. It is not clear from the records what exactly the money is spent on, and the amount of taxes we are charged from the population does not develop. There is no correspondence between the number of wine bottles in the cellar and the amount recorded in the accounting books. This happened more than once or two, repeatedly. Apparently, such errors began to appear at one specific time, namely, during the time when Eliza took on the role of the economy. Since then, the accounting report has been fucked incorrectly. Hearing these words, the main maid trembled, and a fright was written on her face when she realized that she was opened. There was silence, during which only the sniffing of the maid was heard, who did not know what awaited her. Dissatisfied with such news, a woman politely asked the maid to leave them for a moment. She agreed. Why did she ask if Chloe seems to be more reasonable to discuss all issues alone than to speak in person? The girl added that it was necessary to dismiss Eliza and the main groom. The woman asked, but with him what was wrong? Chloe explained that Eliza would need to use the wagon in order to secretly withdraw the inventory outside the house. With this volume of stolen, it was impossible to act alone, which means that she had an accomplice. These two are faithful servants who supported the hostess in difficult times. Their dismissal cannot be discussed carelessly. But this makes their deception more unforgivable. If she appreciated gratitude, she would not have done this. And the gap, similar to this one over time, will only become more. So such a question needs to be solved immediately. After all, if she closes her eyes, their actions will only become worse, which promises big losses for the castle and the family. Suddenly, the woman got angry, asking why she is so persistent to complicate her life with such things, and why does she call her Madame, as if they were strangers. because she entered the family, getting married. Chloe embarrassed. Then the girl suggested calling her mother, but the woman in this appeal noticed rather inappropriate. Then she decided to finish the conversation by discussing this issue with Demian when he would return. Then she would decide. She will have to have dinner alone, since now the hostess does not have an appetite, who disappeared after the conversation. Chloe wanted to say that it was harmful to skip meals, which I heard a displeased request to be silent a little. Going to the exit, the mistress of the house stated that she really could be completely unbearable if she wanted. This situation and reaction of the Duke's mother very upset the girl, who did not expect that everything would turn out that way. A little later, she sat at the dining table, watching the maid slowly pouring her a glass of water. Having bowed, the maid politely asked to call her if she needs something else. She will be nearby. After that, pitch silence came, during which Chloe looked at the plate on which lay a piece of meat. She sadly thought that she managed to make almost the whole house hate herself well. Chloe heard the maids whispered that she wanted to fire Eliza when she barely stayed here for a week. Others were unhappy that this is why it is so important to be extremely careful when choosing a bride. At that moment, all food for a girl became tasteless, after which she mentally asked herself if everything was fine with her father. She also hoped that Gilles returned intact and unharmed, and perhaps Alice wrote a letter to them again. She became interested when the Duke arrives, whether it would be at least better than now, what she immediately doubted. Having menacingly plunging the fork into the meat, Chloe, with anger, thought that to drive people in a corner was the main tradition of Tissa's house. Now she did not even know which of them worse, a mother or son who made her life worse in such a short time. Suddenly, Chloe shuddered when Demian said that she had a pleasant conversation, although she did not often talk to herself. Hanging over her, the man said that he gave rise to a feeling of loneliness in her heart during his absence. Chloe did not have time to say anything, as a woman ran into the dining room at the same second, welcoming her dear son. She said that he should have warned that he would come. He replied that he had returned earlier because he was bored. The girl was embarrassed to watch this picture, because of which everything that was happening in her head was written on her face. The woman said that the return road completely exhausted him, but on the contrary, he was in high spirits. Then he said that, hurrying here, he was pretty hungry, and now it would be nice to quench hunger. After which he noticed that the table was already partially covered, and his wife was also present. The delighted mother replied that she would immediately order Madame d'Aton to prepare something for him. Paying attention to the table, Demian said that this is not necessary, since the table is already on the table. When Chloe rose from his seat, he heard her husband ask to prepare an additional serving. When everyone took their places, Demian asked Chloe if she had everything like everything. She answered in the affirmative. The girl added that everyone was so kind that she made her stay here incredibly pleasant and comfortable. The Duke was glad to hear this, but as soon as he put a piece of meat in his mouth, he immediately turned him out, and his mother cried out. Having spat out the meat, after which he rubbed his mouth with a napkin, the man menacingly ordered to immediately call the doctor. The frightened mother immediately began to ask her son what was the matter, and why did he need a doctor so suddenly. He replied that being the main doctor of this family, he did not take care of her health, and he intends to execute him. The woman tried to convince him that she was in perfect order. Then she began to find out what he was talking about. Demian replied that she had tasted unpleasant food, and this leads to the idea that with her feeling of taste, something is wrong. Having dismissed, Mother said that everything was in order with her taste, and the doctor was innocent, and there is no need to punish him. The man asked if she was sure, because the steak is hard to absurdity, and the vegetables are too dry and sluggish. The soup was clearly cooked a few days earlier, and the wine is categorically not suitable for serving on the table at Tissa at home. Suddenly, he asked if she wanted to say that she knew from the very beginning that they had served unusual food. Without hearing any answer, the Duke grabbed the knife, after which the chef was menacingly ordering to bring to him. A few minutes later, the woman said that she did not understand how the skills for the almshouse could be here. At that very moment, several maids began to whisper among themselves, nervously glancing at each other. The head of the head continued to say that those who were instructed to cover on the table made some mistake. At that very moment, the servant fell to her knees, screaming that they committed a heavy sin, after which they asked for mercy. Demian looked strictly at them and asked if they hoped to stay alive after such an insult to his family. He ordered them to be thrown in a dungeon and tear them to pieces, when suddenly Chloe said that it was only one meal. Then she also looked strictly at her husband, politely asking him to forgive them for this small misconduct. Although the food is intended for the almshouse, it is still suitable for use. The Duke decided to stand on his own. He said that sitting here, eating such inedible scraps without a single discontent, is an insult to his name. Although she is from a modest family, there should be common sense in this. The girl immediately apologized for negligence. But then she added that, as his wife, or the idea of this house, she asks him to restrain himself and show mercy. She also asked them to give them the opportunity to treat her with an official dinner, appropriate to Tissa's house. That evening, sitting on her bed, Chloe thought that by a happy chance she managed to save the life of the servants. Demian said that he should mercy if this is what she wants, because she really is generosity. However, she is very glad that she did not have to see how their heads fly, because even then she began to feel sick. Suddenly, they knocked on her room, and the maid said that His Grace wants to see her in her chambers. Chloe tried to understand what was impatient at such an hour, and then replied that she would come as soon as she was ready. But at the same moment, Demian himself entered the room, with a smile, and asked, "What preparations can you need?" The girl tried to cover herself, while the man said that there was no need for etiquette and a proper dress, especially at this hour of the night, when they can see and communicate unofficially, after which he approached her. Chloe replied that to meet him in his chambers as soon as she dressed, after which she asked to give her a couple of minutes. Having crouched on her bed, he repeated that there was no need to observe etiquette, and she just needs to come. The girl frowned, after which she slowly went out of bed. Hearing the question whether she could stand without support, she replied that it was hard, and she could easily be on the floor, after which she asked if he wished. The man replied that it would be charming, after which he asked if they could go to his room. After a couple of minutes, they sat opposite each other, when Chloe asked if he had some important matter. Demian asked in response how she thinks what matters could be between her husband and wife at such a late hour. The girl's eyes widened when she decided that he could hint at an act that was not on the day of their wedding. The girl's heart immediately stabbed, while a man watched her reaction and a reddened face with a smile. Now he can easily say what exactly she was thinking about, and he was pleased to watch this picture. He said that he intends to reward her for the conscientious performance of duties as a duchess. Chloe wanted to answer something, but the Duke interrupted her, adding that she got rid of Elise and Robinson for him. This information dumbfounded her when she asked that he knew all this time about their lies and fraud. He replied that he loves his mother and knows how much she was attached to these two, so she closed his eyes. Then he asked why she was making such a shocked face, deciding that she was shocking, that he loves his mother. Rising from his seat, he said that although she is capricious and immature, she is a woman who gave him life, and in the near future, she should have to spend time on their villa in the south at the moment. The thing is that she just has a broken heart due to the dismissal of the poor Ellie and Robbie, and she needs to be alone. Having picked up the box, the Duke added that she would benefit her to change the situation and breathe fresh air, and this should help her better adapt to life here. The last words very much surprised Chloe. When he put a box in front of her, the girl asked herself to be that this man is showing kindness. When she lifted the lid, she looked at a surprise at the legs made to order specifically for her. Demian said that as soon as she gets used to him, he could go comfortably and freely without support. Then, he asked her to try on that he could see, but this made the girl think for a second. Having made the decision, Chloe closed the box, thanking him for the gift, but now she did not dare to use it now. With a dissatisfied look, she added that the use remains at the discretion of the recipient, so she is trying on later. She herself thought that she did not know how to use it, and did not want to see how she hobbies and falls. Obviously, he intends to mock her, but Chloe uneased his intentions and immediately stopped. Demian said that she believes that the invitation of her servant in a compartment for a date should also be at her discretion. The girl was amazed, and the Duke explained that when she was a member of the Tissa house, she hears all kinds of news, but for what purpose she demonstrates the generosity that exceeds the one that the servant deserves, and brought him to the estate. Now his tone sounded very frightening, because he was sure that Chloe tuned everything so that Gilles was nearby. Chloe replied that Gilles is a faithful servant who has been working for their family since the time when he was still a child. Damian replied that Eliza fed him instead of his mother when he was a baby, and still betrayed their trust. The girl realized what he was driving at, after which she calmly asked him to stop insulting her. The Duke replied that he did not insult her, but gives advice. Come on, that her servant did not leave the railway station. And if people find out that he stayed here, because of some long-standing attachment to the mistress, then rumors will crawl. Chloe was dumbfounded that Gilles did not return to the Verdier estate, wondering why. Damian did not believe that she abandoned her duties of the Duchess and disgraced him in this way. After that, he slowly approached her, with an orderly tone, asking her to immediately try on the prosthesis. Sometime later, the girl once again fell, trying to stand on her feet evenly, but to no avail. Having crouched in front of her on the knee, the Duke here already began to thoughtfully ask which part for her is uncomfortable. Then he helped her to rise, but she asked not to touch him, although he wanted to find out the shortcomings of the prosthesis. Chloe said that all the devices are uncomfortable because she does not need it, it only hurts her. Damian replied that as soon as she gets used to him, it will produce the opposite effect. It requires effort. Looking at her face, the man asked if she was crying. The girl turned her head and gave a negative answer. Suddenly, the man smiled, saying that this is absolutely right, because crying like a child is not appropriate for the Duchess. Then he began to touch her prosthesis, while Chloe said that he really looked like a devil. Having brought his face to her, Damian replied that he had yet to show what devil he could be. Suddenly, Damian asked what she was feeling now. Chloe replied that she was feeling an insult, but he did not believe her. Then the girl said that he was deeply upset. The man asked for permission to ask again how she was feeling. She replied that her heart beats painfully quickly. Then the Duke asked if her body was becoming hot, and does her blood boil so much that now she is not even able to control her breathing, and also her heart, which is about to jump out of her chest. The girl immediately blushed, answering with consent. But that is why she felt such an insult. After that, she closed her eyes, waiting for a kiss from Damian. When the kiss was interrupted, he asked what it was like to kiss with the man whom she compared with the devil. Breathing heavily, Chloe asked him if he would allow her to return to her chambers, thereby surprising the Duke with such a request. He suggested that he would give her courtesy if this is what she wants. In response to this, the girl frowned. The next day, Damian's guests said that they would soon lay the railway to the Verdier estate. They decided that this was his wedding gift to his wife, to which he, in response, asked if they considered it a problem. But they were simply surprised that he was such a husband in front of me. Meanwhile, Chloe thought it was tiring. Then, they said that recently there was suspicious movements in the Duchy of Carter. They announced that the war is over, but they cannot be sure when they can hit with a knife in the back. They can strike at any time, and using their geographical position in their own interests. But his lordship must strike him. Perhaps soon he will actually have to make this decision. Grinkling at Chloe, who immediately shuddered, Damian said that he would like to know what his wife was thinking about it. After that, 3 pairs of eyes stared carefully at the girl, who did not even dare to raise her head. Then Chloe replied that she was just a simple layman when it comes to politics and diplomacy. One of the men replied that noble women from a good family, like her, would not have to worry about such. However, the girl continued, saying that she knew that the residents of Svanton were tired of the war. The Duke agreed. No one can guarantee victory in the war, and they cannot assume that Carter's military forces are still weak. As Count Weiss noted, the Duchy of Carter is quite capable of using its geographical position. The Count smiled, saying that the horizons of the Duchess were quite extensive. She was flattered by a compliment. Damian asked if they should just sit while the card was building up forces, because they increased the fee for goods. When he asked what she was thinking on this score, 2 guests immediately began to move and mutter. Then they fell silent, fixing their eyes on the girl, waiting for whether she could also give a completely worthy answer. Having imperceptibly squeezing her dress, Chloe mentally concluded that he was trying to humiliate her in front of these men. Then she replied that an ideal solution would be to sign a peace treaty and avoid bloodshed. The Duke replied that this is nothing more than naive optimism, because promises are violated much more often than they are fulfilled. Chloe said that there is a way to guarantee that they will not violate the contract, because the kingdom will appreciate blood ties. There are many possible approaches, but the most effective of them is marriage. This would be effective. The duchy has one heir, and the royal family did not produce a single princess. Svanton has the heir Johannes, and the heir to the duchy Carter, 3 senior and unmarried sisters. When the proposal fell out of her mouth, the guests immediately began to chuckle and whispered among themselves. Looking at them, she tried to understand what was happening, while they discussed Prince Johannes with a smile. Then the girl decided that they were very tasty at her, but they try not to do this directly. Having cleared his throat, Count Weiss said that being married to the prince is too terrible to imagine it. Then he stated that her grace did not follow the red veil. Chloe immediately remembered the article about Demian and Isabella. Suddenly, the other guest asked what could spur him to raise the theme of the veil, and where his manners. Suddenly, the Duke smiled and said that he himself was curious whether his wife had ever read a red veil. Judging by her reaction, it seems that he is right, because when the veil was mentioned, Chloe shuddered barely. She replied that she read only once, but did not attach much importance to this, because it was just a cheap newspaper. Having risen, she said that she would ask to give a dessert, asking to continue their discussion. Weiss began to whisper that she was a wonderful woman, and he understands why the Duke was in such a hurry with this marriage. He was immediately answered that if he was in love with the wife of the former boss, he would be in great trouble. The Count said loudly that he was not interested in her romantically, bearing only her praise. The man felt only respect, while Chloe thought that these people were really the worst. When the night fell on the estate, someone suddenly knocked on the door, calling on Milady, who woke up from the noise. Hastily going down, the worried girl opened the door, simultaneously asking who was knocking at such an hour. Chloe was amazed when the woman abruptly grabbed her by the shoulder, although she still did not even have time to look at the guest. The dumbfounded girl immediately asked what she was doing here, addressing the breathless Eliza. At that very moment, the maid came running to them at all pores, loudly and displeasedly, turning to Madame Eliza. She should not see her, but the woman demanded to let her go, asking if she knew how old she worked here. She screamed that she dedicated her whole life and service to this family. At that time, Chloe frowned, watching her. She hastened to reassure her, after which she asked to tell why she was here. The woman immediately shuddered. Then she replied that her grandson had a fever, and he lost consciousness, and recently even began to wander. Eliza asked for permission to see a family doctor to at least somehow help to calm the heat and fever. Chloe thought, deciding that he could have the same disease that she suffered when she was a child. The girl ordered the doctor to immediately bring. She replied that she could not do it without permission. Then Chloe asked if she intended to disturb the dream of his lordship or forgot that she was the mistress of this castle. Awareness suddenly came to the maid, after which she screamed that she would immediately go after the doctor. When the maid ran away, Chloe turned to Eliza, asking her to put her on the back and take her to her house. To the dumb question, she replied that the fight against fever is a wartime war, and they should hurry. When they reached, the girl immediately began to develop the child, and Eliza was dumbfounded what she was doing. The woman was worried, asked loudly if she hears him, thinking that the child could freeze to death. However, Chloe did not pay attention to it, asking to go out and bring a little snow to cool the heat. Eliza sighed, after which she replied that if something happens to him, she would never forgive her for it. She replied that she could be offended, but if she does not want to see her grandson with lameness, she should trust her. After some time, the child slept tightly. The electrician said that Chloe did a striking job. After all, if her lordship came a little later, there would be no chance of a cure, so it is worth it to thank her. Burning her tears, Eliza asked how to repay, but she replied that she had saved his life not for the sake of duty. Now she was just glad that everything would be fine with the child, when suddenly a creak of the door was heard behind them. Demian entered the room, who turned to Chloe with displeasure, simultaneously crossing his arms over his chest. Eliza was dumbfounded and frightened by his appearance, while his wife looked at him invariantly. Meanwhile, the man ordered her to go out in a serious tone, not paying attention to the rest. Later, Chloe said that Eliza was supposed to leave 2 days ago, but could not do this because of her grandson's illness. All the money that she knocked from the castle was wasted by her son, who lost everything in gambling. The child is not to blame for anything. It was adults who sinned. Besides, Eliza devoted her whole life to the service of Tisa to the house. Having expressed everything to justify herself before her husband, the girl looked at his impartial and calm face. She added that she called the doctor without his permission, because she did not want to break his sleep. Suddenly he stopped. I said that he never asked her to report on everything that she was doing. After all, she does not need to justify her actions or apologize for what she considered necessary. But now, all that he wants to know is why she decided to help a person who betrayed their family. He was notified that she even wrote her a letter of recommendation to be accepted to another job. Chloe replied that having worked here all her life, she could not get a letter with good words anywhere. And with the doctor, the situation was urgent, so she could not waste time. But Demian thought differently. But he decided that in this way, she wanted to take off the load of guilt because of her dismissal or out of pity for her son. Hearing a negative answer, he asked if it was all due to the fact that she always experiences compassion for servants. The girl decided to ask a counter question, asking if he could always give a clear explanation for her actions. The man proudly replied that almost always, Chloe turned away with displeasure, that then she was different. She also could not understand why he so persistently asked such questions. Demian tilted his head. He asked what she was doing when she wants to meet someone better, instead of asking questions. Having a look, Chloe blushed and uncertainly replied that she simply recognized them naturally. When she calmly watches a person, there are things that can be found out about them without any questions. They immediately remembered the moment when their views first met, after which a protracted silence came. Suddenly, the man noticed Chloe's reddened hands and immediately put his fur cloak on her. Then he said that he was considering the possibility of hiring Gilles to the now free position of the main groom. He lives starving, being a submarine at the railway station instead of returning. Now he has hard, but he has concessions Gotov and give him a decent job with a good salary. So, most likely, it will be an appropriate offer, because he is sure that the girl wants to keep him better. Chloe, with a smile, replied that he was worthy of trust, and she was ready to vouch for him with her life. In addition, she vowed that there was nothing incident between them. The Duke suddenly grinned. Why did he lean towards her, saying that if so, then she should now kiss him as a faithful wife? He asked to prove that his attitude with that servant was clean as snow, only in this case he would hire him. Chloe was surprised to answer that she had no desire to kiss him at this moment and prove something. Demian said that this poor boy would soon be on the train, but the girl replied that he was choosing where to live. The Duke said that he was a devoted husband, and the less confidence his wife inspires, the less he will be happy. In this kingdom, the power of the Duke is an order of magnitude more priority than the freedom of the servant, no matter how true he is. The girl grabbed the fur on her collar, after which she said that it was very regrettable for the kingdom. Gathering his strength, she asked him to lower his head. The man, with a smile on his face, immediately obeyed and leaned. But at that very moment, he was surprised when Chloe pulled him to him and passionately kissed him on his lips, blushing along the way. She tightly squeezed her cane, after which she pulled away from him, but the Duke asked not to try to escape, after which the girl again pulled him to her, kissing him again, because of which she was embarrassed even more. A trembling ran across her body, and when the kiss was interrupted, Demian said that her efforts were worthy of praise. However, he was a little upset that the hottest kiss, donated to her on this day, was for another. This makes him feel at the same time both extreme pleasure and the extreme degree of insult. The next day, Chloe wrote a letter to her father. I apologize for the long absence of letters on her part, in view of employment. It is so cold here that the river was facing, although it hardly had enough time to notice it. The servants here are cordial and welcoming, and the Duke did everything possible to help her adapt to life here. Pulling up a scribbled sheet, the girl thought that writing a lie was not so easy, especially to her father. Then she decided to write that there was another important news that can surprise him very much. During the last correspondence, he mentioned that he was a frustrated decision of Gilles to leave his position. It seems that he was completely fascinated by the estate of Tissa, which he visited for such a short time. His Grace offered Gilles an excellent position in a birch castle, to which he immediately agreed. As he can judge, they communicate with her with extreme generosity and respect, so he has nothing to worry about. She wished him to remain in good health until her next letter, adding that she was cordially yearning for him. After a while, Chloe discovered Demiana during a game of billiards, who said that he had made brilliant blows. To his statement that he will soon have 100 points, the girl replied that he had just played against the rules. The man replied that she had previously stated that she did not know the rules, and if she did not want to play with him, then he was disappointed. Chloe asked why he called her in the middle of the night, because she quite regularly fulfills her duties of the Duchess. She also added that her attitude with the servants improved significantly when suddenly her eyes opened. The Duke handed her key, asking her to take what he heard the question if he wanted to engage in her right now. The man answered in the affirmative, because of which the girl sighed heavily, asked what the conditions of the game are. Chloe explained that playing without a bet, where nothing was put on a con, she is not of interest to her. Demian grinned, answering that she did not cease to surprise him, after which he asked what she wants. The girl said that if she wins, he must stop calling her to his chambers so late at night. Then the man asked if he won, whether she thought that he could lose, because it would be reckless. Preparing for the first blow, he concluded that if he still wins, he would take her what he wishes. Being completely confident in herself, the inspired Duchess replied that she agreed to such a bet. When the game began, Demian said that it was a foul, to which the girl replied that this simply could not be. Then he smiled, said that this was all a trick of vision, and Chloe realized that he could not trust this man. Looking at his wife, the man thought that he knew that she was an amazing woman in many respects, and yet she again surpassed all his expectations, because not every girl can surprise him so often. Then he asked if she knew that the essence of this game is to make the enemy a mistake. The Duke added that exactly 2 days later, a number of senior guests will arrive on a visit to the Birch Castle. He trusts the hope that she, as a duchess, will do everything in her power to provide them with a warm welcome. There was also another important detail that Chloe should know about, that the Marquis of Isabella will also be among the guests. She is quite a picky lady, so he advises her to be extremely attentive to preparations. When Chloe hit the ball, she immediately froze, not paying attention to the game, being dumbfounded by his words. The man grinned, saying that she apparently lost, but now it was far from the most important. Chloe tried to comprehend what he had just said, and what this person was thinking about, telling her about the Marquise. Then the man hung over her, saying that her turn to give him what he wants. She asked that it could be. The Duke replied that she wanted her lips, but he heard the answer whether this desire is sincere. Having grunted, Demian asked what was wrong, because she herself offered to make a bet, and everything was on her conditions. I wanted to see her broken, so that all the feelings that she suppressed would be freed and flared up in front of his eyes. Suddenly, Chloe turned around in confusion, saying that she had never felt such contempt for another person. The man replied that this was a great honor, after which their lips were in touch, and silence reigned for a couple of seconds. When the kiss ended, the Duke asked if it was all that she wanted to say, but there was something else. He asked her to continue, listening carefully, because he was wondering what she wanted to tell him. He wanted her to shout at him, asked how he dared to insult her so much, and show that she had inside. The girl squeezed the dress, after which she relaxed, saying that if he has no further instructions, she wants to leave. When she left the room, Demian was left alone, being in complete confusion due to her restraint. Then he smiled gloomily, telling himself that, it seems, he underestimated his wife's ability to drive him crazy. Meanwhile, Chloe, limping, walked along the corridor, trying to digest the information just heard. A couple of days later, the guests arrived in the Birch Castle, and the Needles thanked them that they had come such a long way. She trusted the hope that their stay here would be comfortable. Then the girls began to whisper. Then the Duchess greeted Isabella, who was worried that her stay could upset Chloe. The girl replied that she was a close friend of his lordship, so she has no significant reasons to be upset. Isabella said that this was not her desire to be at an event at which she would feel bad. Looking at how she wipes her eyes, other girls began to ask if everything was in order with her. Sobbing, she asked for forgiveness, added that she realized that the world is actually a very cruel place. Chloe sighed. I am surprised at the behavior of the Marquise, which at this second played the role of the unfortunate lady. But whether her suffering will be equal to the feeling of a woman who shows hospitality to her husband's possible mistress. Then she said that if she feels discomfort, she will prepare a room where she can relax. Without hearing the answer, Chloe asked again. She did not want to return to the castle to rest a little. The marquise cried again, saying that she was not happy here, and she knew that she would not be a desired person here. The dumbfounded duchess immediately apologized that she did not mean this, but other girls were whispering again. Suddenly, Demian was behind Chloe, who began to ask what happened with an impartial face. The duchess replied that the marquise is important, so she suggested that she return to the castle for relaxation. Seeing the duke, Isabella shuddered, after which she turned away, saying that she should not come here. Only she is to blame for being in the know how negatively the widows and divorced in this country. Another girl said that she could not believe that there is at least one living soul that would believe in it. In addition, street gatherings in the middle of winter would be very difficult. That is, that she had just arrived from Svan. Another girl said that she also does not feel very well. Ask if there was nothing unusual in food. Observing their chatter, Chloe concluded that they were filled with hostility to her, and they were on the side of the marquise. They will prefer not to accept the fact that the count's incompetent daughter, without a penny in his pocket, has now become a duchess. Leaving, Demian said that he would immediately prepare for Isabella a carriage so that she could return. Suddenly, the marquise said sadly that she did not want to spoil this event because of her presence. Suddenly, Chloe said that if she felt awkward because of her, they would send her an invitation, and if she feels better, then she, like a duchess, hopes that the marquis will have a bit of them with her society. However, if she is unhealthy, then she was a war to leave to rest. That was all she wanted to tell her. The rest of the guests concerned the same. The girl replied that they were just overlooking too much. They were very grateful for her anxiety, but they had no intention to leave the event early. Chloe was also tense because she had not attended events for a long time, and then asked what Isabella would like. Having lowered her head, the girl replied that she was better, after which she asked for forgiveness for anxiety. Chloe said that soon they would give pudding, which was selected to everyone to taste. Suddenly, Demian stated that this was the favorite dessert of the marquise. At the same moment, the duchess covered the numbness. The man added that it was very caring on her part, after which he thanked his wife for hospitality. With a sigh, the girl with an indifferent look turned in his direction, calmly answering her husband's gratitude. The duke crossed his arms over his chest, watching with surprise after the leaving girl who again surprised him. Meanwhile, Isabella, who had previously played the role of an unfortunate girl, stopped crying and sighed. She herself thought that it was unexpected, after which she concluded that the joke was bad with this woman. A little time later, the girls discussed that it was the marquise who met with his lordship of the first than Chloe. Therefore, she has every reason to feel as if she had taken her from her. Then they asked what kind of absurdity to expect from them that they would ride on skates so much cold weather. So you just need to endure until then. She would never have come here if not for her husband's business. After overhearing their conversation, Isabella was surprised that she had taken her from her rightfully. Then she looked at Demian, who rolled on the rink, Chloe, who was sitting peacefully in special sledges. The marquise grinned, deciding that this was a baseless assumption, because she does not intend to deprive herself of anything. While the rest of the girls rode skates, the duke said that today the weather was beautiful. Chloe agreed. When asked if she liked the hidden enmity between the ladies, she replied that thanks to him, everything went well. Without touching Isabella, he did not think that she could allow herself so easily, but she surpassed expectations. She asked if he finds all this situation ridiculous, to which he received an answer, that she did not see obstacles for this. Having frowned and sighed, Chloe said that she could afford to show disrespect in the eyes of the servants, but then she would irrevocably lost authority as a duchess in the eyes of other high-ranking persons. If this happened, she knows that this would lead to negative consequences for both him and for the house. She only honestly fulfilled her duty to the duchess, which he loves to mention at every opportunity. Then the man turned to her, asking if she was offended at him. The girl first said nothing and shuddered. After a pause, she replied that even if so, she was not so stupid as to recognize this fact out loud. A surprised question, why? Chloe replied that everything is that, henceforth, her life is entirely in his hands. She has no desire to be thrown out in the middle of the frozen lake due to the insult caused. At that very moment, Demian laughed that in this world, There is no one who amuses him as much and often as she. However, the Duchess did not see anything ridiculous in these words, because of which she calmly turned her face away from him. After a while, the Duke said that he did not want to leave his wife alone for a long time, so he needs to hurry. The interlocutor replied that if his wife showed her lordship any disrespect, he would like to apologize. Demian asked if he wanted to see him only for this. The mustachioed man shuddered, after which he apologized again. Looking at his wife, the Duke asked himself what she was thinking right now, fixing her gaze somewhere forward. If he could only recognize what was happening in her head now, it would quench this painful thirst. He wants to know how the world seems to her, wants to study her to the tips of his fingers, and understand her inner world. He also wanted to be her only eyes. But what kind of desire that he had never experienced before? Little blushing, he asked himself. Maybe so that right now he craves for himself the love of this woman. Then he asked aloud whether he really crazy, while his interlocutor did not understand what the Duke was now interpreting. He replied that if he is looking for forgiveness, let him tell his wife an apology directly to Chloe. Then he asked Lord Spencer not to waste him in vain. From these words, the interlocutor shuddered again. Demian said that he had to go until someone caused an even more serious insult to his wife. At that very moment, a loud cry was heard. One of the women began to call Chloe, and the Duke immediately reacted. The girls shouted in chorus that she was in danger, while the ice under the Duchess and began to crack more and more. The next second, Chloe completely plunged into the water, slowly dropping to the bottom, unable to get out. Exhaling the air, the frightened girl tried to understand what was happening and why now she was so cold. Then she decided that this is how she would die. Thought that she would again wanted to see her father, Alice, and Gilles. Suddenly, before her eyes, the image of Demian arose, who smiled at her and called to him, enveloping with warmth. She had already begun to lose consciousness, not feeling how the Duke's strong hands picked her up to pull her out of the water. Chloe has already reconciled with her fate, but Demian could not allow this to happen and had to save her. When they got out, the man immediately began to check his wife's condition, hoping that he had time on time. At this time, Demian got angry, being sure that this was not an accident, and someone decided to kill Chloe. When the evening came, Chloe was in her chambers, while the doctor said that at this moment she needed peace. It is incredibly successful that His Grace immediately rushed to her help. Otherwise, it would be too late. If he at least hesitated a little, irreparable harm could be caused to her, and perhaps even lethal. The maid was worried that she was very glad that my lady was in order, but she did not answer. She thought that the sled could not fall on their own, which means that someone deliberately pushed her. It was not difficult to guess who was standing behind this. Then she clarified that all the guests had parted, except for the Marquise. Margaret responded with consent, adding that the Marquise lost consciousness at the sight of her insensitive body. The girl decided to ask where she was now. The maid was surprised to ask why she needed her. The Duchess replied that there was nothing serious, but there is something that she should tell her. Meanwhile, Isabella said that she finally had the opportunity to talk to the Duke personally. She said that everything was exactly as she expected. The ailment of Prince Johannes is becoming more serious, and it seems that the king feels that the uprising is inevitable. Having heard this, Demian froze with a glass in his hand. The girl smiled, adding that His Majesty threatened to take her life if she did not bring him to Svan. Then she asked what he would say to take refuge in Winsbury Villa for an indefinite time. She will tell His Majesty that he disappeared without a trace on the way to Svan, thereby providing assistance to Demian. While the Marquis said that he had nothing to worry about, and on his side, the man held out his hand, stroking her cheek. The man replied that it was hoped that she did not think that he would really go to Winsbury on her advice. The girl replied that it was dangerous, but the man said that she was cold, so always happens when she is lying. Demian suggested that in Winsbury he would be waiting for a detachment of killers. He must be crazy to get caught by him. When asked what he has in mind, the Duke asked not to pretend to be an ignoramus, because he puts himself up with a complete idiot. He asked if she thought that he would ignore the fact that she betrayed her, and decided to unite with the king. After that, the man began to add alcohol into the glass, saying that from now on nothing else connects them. She now has nowhere to return, and if she does not manage to lure him, His Majesty probably get rid of her. Isabella replied that if he had not left her after his marriage, she would never have thought to betray him. After listening to her, the Duke in a calm tone replied that she was saying wonderful things that even sound funny. After all, how can he leave her, even if he never thought about her as her woman, and she considers herself abandoned? Her only task was to play the role of his mistress, while the investigation of the divisions of the royal family is underway. But even this would be unthinkable if she had not been the maid of honor of the deceased queen, and in this case, even more so. In addition, he believed that he had already repaid her for her kindness, but there was no more in their relationship. Having fallen in front of him and grabbing his leg, the Marquise cried out that if she returned to the king now, he would kill her. She loudly asked not to leave her, when suddenly the man began to stroke her chin, thereby giving hope. But at the same moment, he asked if she had thought to survive after he found out about an attempt to kill his wife. Isabella immediately began to retreat, shouting loudly that it was not her. She was not close to her when it happened. Damian asked not to take him even more. I repeat such a ridiculous lie, which is very difficult to believe in. Suddenly, the girl ran to him and hugged him from behind, shouting loudly that she loves him with all her heart and soul. Then she cried, "Beg you to save and help." But in response, she received only the menacing and stern gaze of the Duke. Clutching him, the Marquis said that she did everything out of love for him, but Damian replied that it was too late. The man sighed to hold the girl in his arms, after which he asked her to get out of his eyes immediately. Meanwhile, Chloe, which I wanted to visit Damian's chambers, heard Isabella screaming that she loved him. The Duchess froze, while Margaret, standing behind her, stunnedly put her palms to her mouth. Then the girl turned sharply, invited the maid to return to her chambers so as not to interfere with them. At that very moment, the Duke heard someone's voices outside the door, after which he decided that it could be Chloe. Having released the Marquise from his arms, he headed for the exit, noticing the retreating wife and red-haired maid. The man said that she woke up, wanted to prescribe her complete peace, and then asked why she was here. Chloe smiled tightly, answering that she wanted to see the Marquise and apologize for the arranged pranks. Damian replied that at the moment she was not able to accept her, and it is worth meeting her at another time. Then Chloe said that since he was here too, she would like to tell him something. The man immediately strained. Clutching the cane tightly, the girl asked for permission to return home, to her native Verdier estate. Hearing this request, the Duke stared dumbfounded at his wife. "I do not understand what caused this decision." She explained that the misfortune that happened to her gave rise to a passionate desire to see her father briefly. Damian replied that he could not allow this. The disgruntled girl decided to find out the reason. The Duke replied that now she is the wife of Damian von Tisa, and not the daughter of Thomas Verdier, which was before. The Duchess, faithful to her duty, would never have a thought of hearing her husband to the mercy of fate. Then she asked whether she would fulfill her duties while he was nourished the affection for her mistress. The man froze, after which, with a malicious smile on his face, asked if she was jealous of him to the brand of Isabella. Turning away, Chloe immediately began to deny everything, but her behavior told the Duke completely in the opposite. Then the man decided to return to the conversation about visiting the Verdier estate somehow another time. Then, perhaps, they will be able to find a way to avoid separation. But the girl did not comfort. He decided to complete this conversation, saying that he had to take care of some very important matters. At that very moment, the door closed behind her, and finally, the Duke wished her good night. She did not answer. That same night, wandering through the snowy forest, Chloe did not understand why she felt so exhausted. She entered this marriage, well aware of what kind of person he was, but still cannot get used to it. She promised herself that she would not take care of his personal life, but now she did not know what exactly she expected from him. Then she fell to her knees, not paying attention to the cold in her legs. Now she only wanted to run away. If she could only, she would have returned home in the blink of an eye, so as not to stay here for a second longer. After a while, she reached Gilles' house, saying that he was discouraged by her unexpected visit. The worried guy immediately wanted to ask her what happened, as if a friend. The girl abruptly cut him off. She explained that there was no reason for concern. She just unexpectedly felt house-longing. Chloe said that when she saw him, she could feel as if she had taken there, at least for a while. He wanted to contact her, but the girl suddenly stated that it was a delightful tea, thanking him along the way. Surviving a little, Gilles replied that he could not be compared with the very first cup of tea, which she offered him. Chloe's gaze immediately became dreary when she replied that 10 years had already passed, as they first met. With a smile on his face, the guy specified that 11 years had passed. She was surprised that he remembered the exact date of the first meeting. She immediately transferred to children's memories when she told Gilles that he looked just like a puppy.